Hello, I'm David Hidalgo. I'm a student here, an accounting student here at UNCW. And a question I got for my Christian professors is: do you guys feel a little nervous to bring up your spiritual beliefs, your Christianity to your classmates or to your students?
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Meet the Prof. My name is Shane. I'm so glad you are with us now. This is a podcast where we are seeking to encourage Christ-centered conversations on the college campus. We take questions that we get from college students and we ask them to Christian professors in an interview format. The interview we have today is with Steve Hall, and Steve is at North Carolina State University. I think you're really going to enjoy the progress you see God working in his life from early on through grad school and then as a professor, especially some of the steps of faith that he has been taking and trusting God for. And if you are a Christian faculty member or a staff member or a grad student, we want to invite you to a conference called A Common Call. It's happening February the 7th and 8th of 2025, and it's going to be in Raleigh, North Carolina. And you can find out more looking at the links we'll have here in the description of this podcast. There's a website you can look at and even register from there. And if it doesn't work for you this time, we actually have these conferences across the country. So you can go to facultycommons.com and see where there are other locations for A Common Call. And I really hope you can join us for that. So without any further ado, here is our interview with Steve Hall. So Steve, this is a treat to get to interview you now. And I don't know if you remember the exact date of this, but the first time I ever remember meeting you was at a conference called A Common Call. It was at Clemson University, and it was a conference focused on encouraging and equipping Christian professors to walk with Jesus on campus, have a ministry to students and other faculty. And I don't know if you remember this, but the first time I met you was in the hall right after that conference. We hadn't left the building yet, and you were excited about bringing that conference back home to you in North Carolina, and where you are at NC State. And I know that you have done that. So I was wondering if, especially for faculty who are listening, if we could start off with you just sharing some of why you do this conference and when it's coming up next, how they can find out more about it.
Yeah, thanks, Shane. Yeah, I remember that, and
You
that was
do?
exciting. We had traveled down and several hours in the car to get to that conference, and it was really encouraging. And it was just about
Me too.
all the faculty from several different schools trying to understand how we can join God in what He's doing on campus. And some of it was pretty spiritual. Some of it was real practical, good. Like I remember there was some legal advice about what you can say in the classroom. But I just really enjoyed that and was like, we got to do this. So we have done this since then. We're doing it again in Raleigh on February 7th and 8th, 2025. Going to be at a local church here. It is open to all faculty. So you don't have to be at a particular school. You can be at the community college. You can be at one of the teaching colleges, land grant, big research, privates is fine. Everyone's welcome. And there's going to be some great speakers. We've got faculty from University of Georgia that's coming in. We've got a more theological person that's going to, I think, really probably share. And here's what happens. I always underestimate what God's going to do. And He always does more than I can ask or imagine. And, so I think, I don't know what's going to happen, but I have a feeling it's going to be good. So if you get a chance to come, it's open to all. It'll be a chance to meet some other faculty, maybe from your institution, but maybe from a neighboring institution. People will come from all over the state and probably all over the region. And we'll have people from multiple locations that'll be here. And it'll just be a place where you can pick people's brains. What are you doing at your place? So we're doing this thing. What worked? Well, we tried this. That didn't work so good, but now we're doing this and that's doing a little better. What is happening with your boss? How do I navigate this with the administration? So, and then what's God doing? Just a reminder that, it's not me, it's not you. I mean, I'm thankful we join Him, and I think He's pleased that we join Him, but He's doing things, and it is so exciting to join Him. So I encourage people to come, and look forward to seeing you there. And
Me too.
Look forward to seeing whoever the Lord sends.
I will put the link to find out more about this in the show notes, in the description of this podcast,
Yeah.
whichever app. Is the conference also going to be streamed?
I don't know if there's a streaming option. So I think you can go to A Common Call and look up the Raleigh option, or you can go to CFSN, Christian Faculty Staff Network, CFSN-MCSU, and look up some of the details. So there's a link at each of those
Awesome.
places. Yeah.
Sounds great. Well, I'd like to start with hearing more about your personal life and your personal spiritual journey. So what was it like for you growing up? Did you grow up in a Christian home or a non-Christian home? And specifically, what was like a turning point, you'd say, for when you came to faith in Christ?
Yeah, I grew up in I'll call it a nominal Christian home. I knew about Jesus, but I really didn't connect with Jesus. I did not have a real relationship with Jesus. And that led to me really wandering away from God in college. It wasn't until grad school in California, so God can work wherever he wants. I see this big sign, ENG, and underneath it, I gotta get closer. Engineers need God. Call Pete for a Bible study. So I went to the lab, called Pete. Tell me about this Bible study. Yeah, I'll pick you up Tuesday at 6:30. Pete was another grad student, and he hosted a Bible study at his house. And they obviously were really in love with Jesus. And the people there would pray for things. He was married. They had, I think, 2 kids at the time in grad school. He's making $10,000 a year. And somehow the Lord provided. And well, one week, we need to pray for a new couch. Okay, pray for a new couch because we don't have any money to buy one. And so the next week there was a new couch. Now it was a new used couch, but it was newer and it didn't collapse quite as much. Wow, what happened? Well, the guys upstairs were moving out and they were bringing this couch down the stairs. And we said, hey, you taking that with you? No, we're going to throw it out. Do you want it? Yeah. And by the way, could you carry our old couch out to the trash? Oh, yeah, no problem. So the upstairs neighbors God provided them with this new couch. So, and then that led to me wanting to know more about Jesus and eventually giving my life to Jesus. And it's just changed my perspective. And,
You saw an answer to prayer right there, and that was influential for you.
Yeah. In the middle of grad school in California. So,
yeah. California. I love California. There are many Christian faculty in California we've begun connecting with. And, we interviewed Laurie Kubicek, so we look forward to meeting some of her colleagues even and interviewing them too. Well, so what about as you have grown as a Christian, what was like any turning points that were maybe a big step of faith God called you to, or a time of real growth spiritually? How did he work in your life?
Yeah, so I lived a single life for a long time. And at some point, especially when I got going to church regularly and talking to other Christians, well, some of them were married and had kids, and I'm old enough to do that, but the Lord didn't open that door. And that was frustrating for a while. And finally, I met some Christians who were single, and they seemed really happy and got to know them. And they looked at it. And I mean, perhaps Paul in the New Testament would be an example of someone that does not seem to have been married, and yet he had the opportunity to travel, write letters, encourage people, bring people to the Lord. And so these people kind of had that attitude. And I was like, that's kind of cool. So I started, and that really changed my heart. I mean, it's not that I didn't believe in Jesus, but Jesus can walk with you in whatever stage you're in, wherever you're at, whatever your situation is. Jesus can be with you and he can use you. So I started basically saying yes. So that led to a trip to South Africa and Lesotho, where I got to see some very different living conditions. I had an opportunity to take a little time and teach a summer course at a Christian Environmental Studies Center. And okay, yes, I'll do that. So I started saying yes to these crazy things. Well, I go off to this summer institute, and there were some students there, and there were some staff. And one of the staff, it was interesting. So I pulled into this place. It's in the woods. This is called the Ensemble Institute, still there. And it's kind of a unique place, Christian studies of the environment. And I was teaching a thing called ecological agriculture. How can we do agriculture a little more in a way to care for God's creation and still provide food for people? And as I pull in, I'm looking around and I'm like, where do I go? I mean, it's the woods. I'm looking for a building. And this long-haired guy comes out of the woods and he says, "Are you a student?" And this is my first kind of teaching gig. And I'm like, I'm thinking about it. I had my PhD, but I wasn't thinking of myself as a professor. Are you a professor? And I'm like, yes. And he said, "Oh, let me carry that for you. Where do you need to go?" And Earth Hall. Okay. So we start walking towards Earth Hall, and we're walking through the woods, and we see these two young women go by. And he said, "You see those two women? That's Becky and that's Missy. And if you need anything, they can help you out. They're staff and they know what they're doing here." All right, thanks. Well, he married Missy and I married Becky. So
Is that right?
it's that was quite the story there that the Lord provided. Ironically, when I was a little more satisfied, content in where the Lord has put me, and it probably changed my outlook, my appearance. And at some point, my students said, "What is it with you and Becky? We think there's something there." I mean, it's funny. So these 19-year-olds put me up to basically asking to talk to her, and it was a 5-week slot. So it's a pretty short period of time to have a heavy conversation. But finally I said, "Hey, could we talk? Could we take a walk and talk some?" Yeah, that's fine. So we took a walk, and even that one, the devil was kind of fighting with us. We said, "Well, we'll meet in the middle." They lived in a location about a quarter mile away, and we said, "Well, okay, we'll come early in the morning." Well, both of us went looking for the other person, and no, I didn't see her. She didn't see me. Well, okay, guess that. Okay, God, maybe it's not supposed to happen, And we went to breakfast, and then I see her, and I'm like, and I really felt like I got to say hi to her, And I'm like, "Where were you?" And she's like, "Well, where were you?" "What?" "Well, I was looking for you." "Well, I was looking for you." "What? Wait, which way did you go?" "I went down by the beach." "Oh, I went up on the road." "Okay. Do you still want to? Can we try tomorrow morning?" So, okay, all right. And the next
Nice.
morning, okay, we're both going to go on the road. Okay, we'll meet on the road. Okay, yeah, let's meet on the road. And we talk. And really, I mean, it wasn't a point to say, "Will you marry me?" But just does it make sense to keep in touch? Is this potentially going somewhere serious? The short answer was yes. And, to make a long story very short, eventually the Lord brought us back together after some very interesting long distance, Michigan to Montreal, Montreal to Iowa, Iowa to Louisiana, Louisiana to Costa Rica. This is each of us moving different places. And then finally she flew back into Houston. I picked her up on a Saturday and married her on a Sunday.
No way. That's amazing.
Crazy. I mean, we had counseling, and we had been a year and a half of moving around.
But y'all traveled right up until the wedding date. And now, how many kids do you have? Are y'all up to 50 now?
7 kids. Yeah.
7 kids.
And one just graduated from UNC Wilmington. Praise the Lord. And,
congratulations to her.
NC State, and then 4 more at home. And we're going through what all parents go through, some amazing blessings and some challenges. We pray a lot. Maybe we're a little desperate in our prayers sometimes, but the Lord has provided. I mean, we're very thankful. I think, our kids, some of them I really believe are walking with the Lord. Some of them I think are still on their journey, and they have to, eventually come to where they believe for themselves. But it's been a good walk. I think one observation of having kids that reminds us about ourselves. Before I had kids, and I lived a long time before I had kids, and a lot of the stuff in the Bible didn't make much sense to me. The stuff about our Father, yeah, that's nice. I guess he's our dad. And now that I am the father, and how much a father or mother loves their children. And then the other thing is, can I do it? He's God, but we sometimes think I need to do this or God can't do it. But at the same time, so one time I was unloading a load of 2x4s, and one of my small children, probably 3 or 4 at the time, came up and said, "Daddy, do you need some help? Does God need our help?" Yeah, sure. Why don't you take that end of the board and I'll take this end. So I took the middle and they took the end, and they helped me and they came along, but I was tickled. It was so wonderful. And I think God sees us a little bit like that. He doesn't need us to do any particular thing. He can do what he needs. And even when we refuse to do what he clearly says, he can still do what he needs to do. But he is pleased. He is really pleased when we say, God, how can I join you in what you're doing? And he allows us that satisfaction. And I think, that child was very proud of him or herself that I helped Dad. We came back in and told Mom, I helped Daddy unload the truck. Oh, that's nice. She looks at me like, what kind of help was that?
Yep.
But I think God sees us a lot like that. And there's been a lot of lessons like that. So
That's a great picture. Yeah. Have you seen this at all with maybe your grad students or younger faculty that you'll hear them in the past not having much of an interest in God or spiritual things, and then they get married and they have kids. Specifically, they begin having kids and they think, what example do I want to leave for them? And it actually then opens them up more spiritually. Hey, maybe I want to investigate church now.
yeah.
Have you seen that at all? I've heard a
Yeah.
couple say that to me this last year.
Yes. And I think, I will just say we intersect with people at a certain point in their life. And we have that opportunity to teach them and say, hopefully, some encouraging or some wise things on occasion, or just to walk with them maybe through something. And then we oftentimes re-encounter them at a later stage, and they're at another place. And yes, so now sometimes grad students in particular might be having kids while they're in college, and that's its own interesting adventure. And I have certainly had a chance to provide some counseling and encouragement there.
Mm-hmm.
But also people, 3, 4, 5 years later, they may come back and say, "Hey, I got married, I got a kid. Can we meet up? We catch some coffee?" And the observations that they have, the questions that they have, how do I and what do we want? What's our deepest desire for our own children? Do I want them to make $1 million? No, I don't. If that's what happens, okay. But I want them to manage their life in a way that is satisfying and joyful. And, fundamental aspect of that is understanding what's most fundamental in life, which in my mind is, belief in God as a higher power. I'm not in charge of everything. I still have my place to walk and my work to do, and that's fine. But it is definitely a pleasure intersecting with people at different stages. I also asked myself early on in my career, do I want to invest in students? Because I think it can be emotionally taxing to invest in students because you're going to lose them. They're going to go away. So if you've met with them and talked with them and gotten to know them, or they become a little bit of a friend and, future colleague, and now they go away. And sometimes there are some tears. But the alternative is to say, I'll just be this distant professor who just kind of stands up in the front and doesn't connect. And so I choose to connect, and sometimes that's sad at some point, but sometimes that's also really joyful. And I think I just have felt called to do that, I think. And you think about Jesus came for us, his sacrifice far more than anything I can ever do. But just to walk with people is a real blessing.
Thanks for sharing that. One of the things that we're praying for to be a result of this podcast is that there will be more Christ-centered conversations between professors and students as a result. And it actually seems sort of rare for there to be any really significant conversation between professors and students of, deeper things, personal, emotional kind of issues. So one thing Spence and I've been doing, we've been asking students, what would you like to present? What question would you like to ask a Christian professor? And so this next question that we received is from a student named David. So take a listen to this question.
Hello, I'm David Hidalgo. I'm a student here, an accounting student here at UNCW. And a question I got for my Christian professors is, do you guys feel a little nervous to bring up your spiritual beliefs, your Christianity to your classmates or to your students?
First of all, thank you for David for asking the question. Thank you, Shane, for getting out there and seeing what the students are interested in. I would say, first of all, yes. And I recall the first time I was challenged by a colleague who said, do you share Christ in your class? And I'm like, no, not really. And he said, I always put it first day of class and last day of class, and then when I can fit it in between. And he described a little bit how he did that. And so I thought about that, and he prodded me, And so finally I said, all right, I'm going to put a slide in and I'm going to see how it goes. And I was terrified. I mean, you think that professors are above, but professors are people too.
Humans, yep.
And I think, I would just say, pray for your professors, that they would be bold, especially your Christian professors, that they would be bold in sharing what they believe. What I do is I put, the title slide, welcome to class. This is BAET 411. This is the title of class. This is where we're going to be. If this is your class, we're so glad you're here. If this is not your class, you may well want to go check on which class you should be in. So a little laughter there. And then I say, I'm going to say something about myself. And I switch to another slide. And now I have maybe 2 slides that are personal slides, a little bit about where I did my training, why should I be teaching this class? What's my specialty? And then a little bit about me personally. Here's my family. I got a bunch of kids, and, here's where I've lived. Here's some things about me. But the most important thing is I believe in Jesus. I love him, and I think he loves me, and he has made all the difference. And if you want to talk more about that, I'm happy to talk more about that outside of class, but I want you need to know that. I hope that makes me a better teacher. I hope you know that I care about you. I think each one of you is made in the image of God, and I'm going to try to teach you that. I'm going to try to basically treat you well in class and treat you very positively. And if you have any problem, you let me know, and I'm going to do my best to address that. So, and then I go on with the class. Okay, now we got to do the syllabus, and, off we go. And, and I just kind of leave that door open. The first time I was terrified. I really thought, like, somebody's going to call the dean. I'm going to get fired. I'm never going to get tenured.
Right.
And to the best of my knowledge, no one has ever called the dean. On the other hand, over the years, many, many students have come to me in different ways, talking about their faith journey, talking about where they're at, or sometimes in the really tough times have showed up at my door. Dr. Hall, I got this thing. Can I talk with you about it? And I'm like, why do I get this honor? I'm an engineer, but I have talked to students. Now, I often will try to, be with them, sometimes pray with them, but I will also direct them to appropriate counseling services. But the point is that door gets opened and people say, this person's for real. And he seems to think some positive things, and I want to hear more, share more.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm so encouraged by Steve, and we cut it halfway through. So please stay tuned for next week for part 2 of our interview. I just especially appreciate Steve's heart for following God. That's sort of contagious to me. So remember, if you're a Christian faculty, staff, or grad student, you're invited to the conference, A Common Call, and you can find out more information in the description here of the podcast. And so until next time, I hope this encourages you to have a Christ-centered conversation on your college campus.